If you're a Newport Beach homeowner thinking about selling, there's something I want to say up front because I see this mistake all the time. Selling a home in Newport Beach is not the same as selling elsewhere in Orange County. And the consequences for getting it wrong here are much higher. I regularly see sellers make decisions that might cost them $10,000 or $20,000 in another market, but in Newport Beach, those same decisions can cost $100,000 or more. Because buyers here are extremely well informed, they are analytical, patient, and comparing options across multiple coastal markets at the same time. Newport Beach is a lifestyle market, and lifestyle buyers evaluate value very differently. So today, I want to walk you through the biggest mistakes I see home sellers make here, and more importantly, how to think about avoiding them if protecting your equity matters to you. The first thing to understand is that Newport Beach itself is not one market. Buyers don't shop Newport Beach as a single zip code. They shop very specific pockets, streets, and lifestyle categories. A buyer looking on the Balboa Peninsula is evaluating something completely different than a buyer looking in Harbor View, Big Canyon, Newport Coast, or even Newport Heights. And many buyers aren't just choosing between homes, they're choosing between Newport Beach, Corona del Mar, Laguna Beach, and sometimes even parts of Laguna Niguel that offer a different value proposition. That means your home isn't being judged in isolation. It's being judged against alternatives, and that's where a lot of sellers get tripped up. The first and most expensive mistake I see is overpricing based on emotion or outdated assumptions. This usually sounds like, my neighbor sold for this last year, or we put so much money into the house, or let's just try it and see. Here's what most sellers don't realize. Your strongest buyers show up early. In Newport Beach, the first 2 to 3 weeks matter more than almost any other period of the listing. That's when serious qualified buyers are paying attention. These are buyers who have been watching the market, who understand value, and who will pay a premium for the right home if it feels correctly positioned. When a home comes on overpriced, those buyers often don't even tour it. They assume either the seller isn't realistic or that they can wait for reductions. Then something subtle but damaging happens. The home doesn't just sit, it starts collecting data. Days on market becomes a signal, and in Newport Beach, buyers interpret that signal very clearly. They see leverage shifting. By the time price reductions happen, the home is no longer being evaluated as new opportunity. It's being evaluated as, why hasn't this sold yet? And that change in perception is incredibly difficult to undo. Buyers here don't price homes based on what a seller hopes to get. They price risk, alternatives, and opportunity cost. They ask themselves what else they could buy if they don't buy this home today. That's why pricing has to be rooted in current buyer behavior, not past sales alone. The second mistake I see is underestimating how selective today's buyers really are. Newport Beach buyers are not rushed. Many of them have flexibility. They may already own another home. They may be waiting for the right fit. And because of that, they notice everything. Sellers often tell me, it's just cosmetic or the location will carry it. But buyers don't think in those terms. They walk in and immediately start calculating how much time, effort, decision-making, and uncertainty a home represents. Even small issues get mentally magnified because buyers have options. This is where sellers lose money without realizing it. Buyers don't just subtract the cost of a repair or update. They subtract extra for inconvenience, for disruption, and for the risk that something becomes more complicated once they start. That deduction is almost always larger than the actual cost of the work. Strategic preparation isn't about making a home perfect. It's about understanding what buyers will quietly penalize and addressing those items intentionally while ignoring the ones that don't actually affect perceived value. This is where sellers benefit from someone who sees buyer reactions every week, not just sales data. Another big mistake is choosing a pricing strategy without understanding buyer depth at that specific price point. Pricing in Newport Beach isn't just about the number, it's about who exists at that number. At certain price levels, there are plenty of buyers. At others, the buyer pool thins quickly. And that depth changes based on interest rates, market conditions, and what else is available at the same time. I see sellers make two common missteps here. One is starting high with the idea that they'll negotiate later. In this market, that often backfires because the best buyers don't want to negotiate from a position that feels unrealistic. The other is slowly chasing the market down with small reductions. That may feel safer emotionally, but buyers tend to read it as hesitation or weakness. Effective pricing creates urgency without pressure. It makes buyers feel like they need to act, not like they need to wait. That kind of positioning only comes from understanding how buyers are responding right now, not from automated estimates or generic advice. Marketing is another area where I see sellers unintentionally leave money on the table. In Newport Beach, professional photos and online exposure are assumed. Everyone has them. What many listings lack is a clear narrative. Buyers aren't buying square footage, they're buying how the home fits into their life. Morning walks, privacy, views, lock and leave convenience, proximity to the water, and a sense of arrival. When marketing doesn't tell that story clearly, buyers default to comparing homes purely on price. And when price becomes the only differentiator, sellers lose leverage. Local knowledge matters here because different Newport Beach neighborhoods sell on different emotional drivers. Understanding what resonates in each area changes how a home should be presented and perceived. Another costly mistake is waiting too long to adjust strategy when the market is giving feedback. This usually doesn't come from stubbornness. It comes from hope. Sellers think maybe it's just a slow week or the right buyer hasn't seen it yet. But the market communicates early. Low showing activity, a lack of second showings, repeated buyer comments, or consistent objections are all signals. They offer insight into what buyers are struggling with, even when they don't say it outright. Sellers who respond to those signals early preserve leverage. Sellers who wait often find themselves negotiating later from a weaker position. My role is to interpret that feedback honestly and guide adjustments before the market forces them. That's not always the easiest conversation, but it's the one that protects the outcome. If you're thinking about selling a home in Newport Beach, whether that's in the next few months or the next year, the best thing you can do is get clarity early. I'm always happy to talk through what buyers are responding to right now, how your specific neighborhood is behaving, and what a thoughtful pricing and preparation strategy would look like based on today's market, not last year's. Because in Newport Beach, equity is real money, and protecting it usually comes down to informed decisions made before the sign goes in the yard. And even if selling still feels like a someday decision, having these conversations early gives you options. It allows you to move on your timeline, not under pressure, and with a clear understanding of what actually matters in this market. Whenever you're ready to talk it through, I'm here as a resource. No pressure, just clarity, strategy, and honest guidance so you can make the decision that feels right for you.